The implications of the appropriation of Jesus' race. The way Jesus' image was taken and changed is one of the biggest intellectual thefts in history. It started around the 4th century AD, when Christians began painting Jesus to look like Greek and Roman gods to attract more followers. It was basically marketing, but it had a huge negative impact. The second greatest trick of white supremacy was making us believe that the man of the century looked like a perfect, blonde-haired, blue-eyed model, not a real original soul brother. The first trick was making us think we were inferior when we're definitely not, but that's not the point here. This change in how Jesus looked is important because imagery matters. When people see others who look like them in powerful or beautiful positions, they feel like they too can reach those heights. It's affirming, but living in a world where millions of Christians worship a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus only lifts blonde hair and blue eyes up higher, making whiteness seem more important. But the truth is clear, that image is a lie. Jesus was black. Now let's face the elephant in the room. How did this appropriation happen, and what are its real consequences? Let's get in. While Jesus transcends race and skin color, the image of a white Jesus has real-world consequences. If you close your eyes and picture Jesus, chances are you'll imagine a white man. Without even realizing it, many have become followers of this white Jesus. Not only is this image wrong, but it also stops us from honoring the image of God in people who aren't white. Jesus likely had a darker skin tone, more like the olive skin that's common among Middle Easterners today. Biblical scholar James Charlesworth even says Jesus was probably dark brown and suntan. The first depictions of Jesus showed him with a brown complexion and an oriental cast. But by the 6th century, Byzantine artists started showing him with white skin, a beard, and hair parted in the middle. And this is the image that became the standard. During the colonial period, Western Europe spread its image of a white Jesus across the world. This version of Jesus shaped how many Christians understood his ministry and mission. In the 19th century, some Christians who wanted to justify slavery went out of their way to present Jesus as white. By ignoring his true identity as a dark-skinned, oppressed minority, slaveholders found it easier to justify the master-slave system and forget Jesus' mission to set the oppressed free, as seen in Luke chapter 4, verse 18. Now, some may argue that Jesus was neither black nor white because he was a Jew, but that argument is not true. As a Jew, Jesus was an ethnic minority in the Roman Empire. Jews were often marginalized by Romans, Greeks, and other groups in many cities under imperial rule. As a baby, Jesus became a target of ruler-sanctioned infanticide, fled to Egypt as a refugee, and experienced the exploitation of Roman tax collectors. Throughout his life, Jesus understood the struggles of belonging to an ethnic group whose culture, religion, and experiences were sidelined by those in power. Because Jesus was part of an ethnic minority, it challenges everyone to rethink who he really was and with whom he connected during his mission. When marginalized people gathered, Jesus was right there, not just because he helped them, but because he was one of them. Jesus didn't just care for victims of Roman violence. He was a victim of it. He didn't just care for refugees, he was a refugee. He didn't just care for the poor, he was poor. To Jesus, his ministry was deeply personal because he experienced the pain of being one of society's most marginalized people. Even more than how Jesus looked, it is clear from how he lived and died that he was a brother. He was not part of the dominant group. He was a revolutionary born into poverty and shut out from certain spaces. He spent his life on the run. As a child, he had to flee his home country to avoid being killed by the king. He faced constant oppression, with authorities spying on him and chasing after him. Despite all that, he still found time to share wisdom and enjoy wine with his friends. His story takes a turn when he is betrayed. He gets wrongfully arrested, and in front of a crowd, he is lynched. That sounds exactly like the life of a brother. The oppression he faced, the mistreatment by a government so afraid of him that it put him to death, all of it paints him as an outsider. Jesus' story mirrors the black experience, where the system oppresses and destroys those who try to change the world. Think of Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, and many others. When someone speaks out, the system tries to silence them. But just like those tragically lost in their communities, Jesus ended up with the ultimate mural, his image painted across the world. And yet, despite living that black life, Jesus is now presented as the face of white supremacy. Imagery is important. So if you are a Christian and want to display an image of Jesus in your home, choose a black Jesus. Everyone deserves to see Jesus as the beautiful black man he was. He was a true revolutionary who rose from nothing to become brilliant, powerful, loved, feared, and ultimately unforgettable. One of the greatest people ever, a man who showed the world how to live right, would not support theft. Yet when Christian leaders promote that surfer dude image of Jesus, they are pushing dishonesty, stolen imagery, and the continuation of white supremacy. That false image